Hello, it's Michelle with Keto Life and Harmony, and I'm back with you with another The Road So Far. Last time I did a update was a couple of weeks ago, and I just kind of letting you know how things have been since my last videos about keto, which really were 2018, quite a while ago. A lot's happened in life. Other things are happening. Life is always happening. Let's just face that. What I'm very grateful for is I was able to stay keto successfully this entire time from when I went February 2nd, 2017 to now. Um, when you're first going keto, things go a lot easier and faster. You can get away with more net carbs and keto treats because your body isn't eating all the other stuff and it's starting to do all this metabolic healing and all of that. And at some point, you have to get even more. I don't know what's the word. You have to make other changes. You have to eliminate some of those keto treats, some of those dirty keto items. Like, for instance, I have been a ketchup fan all of my life. I love ketchup on most of my meat products. There are a few I don't put ketchup on, but that's beside the point, okay? Um, I even learned how to make my own sugar-free ketchup and was doing that for a while, and then it was just more than I wanted to deal with, so I stopped. And then instead of buying sugar-free ketchup from the store, I was buying full-on sugar from the store and just limiting how much I ate. I thought I was doing okay, and I'm sure it was having impact. But I'd say about 3 to 4 months ago, I completely eliminated ketchup from my diet of any kind, not even sugar free ketchup, because it's still tomato, so it still has natural carbs too, um, that are a bit higher than most people would really want, on a low carb diet, anyways. So I started with eliminating that. I started titrating down on my Mountain Dew habit. So I was drinking, about 2 liters a day of Mountain Dew. So I started cutting it with sparkling water that doesn't have any sweeteners. It's just flavor and sparkling water, and things like that. I started out at 75% Diet Dew, 25% sparkling water. Easily got up to 50% within several weeks. Yeah, I'd say. And then I actually got all the way to the point where it was 75% sparkling water and 25% Diet Dew. And that was totally tolerable. And I thought, wow, I've made all these improvements. And I was still weighing myself, not every day, the whole 9 yards, right? But the scale, it wasn't moving. And I'm talking over weeks. It still wasn't moving. I was still around the 170 to 175 mark, okay? And I'm like, okay, well, I thought I was making these changes that were going to be significant and get me moving on the path to releasing more fat, and things like that. It wasn't enough. It just wasn't. So at the beginning of June, I started making other thoughts and plans. I discovered truffles. I've known about them for years. They never really spoke to me as like, well, why would I care, And I tried them. It's just 2 eggs, 2 tablespoons of butter, and an ounce of cream cheese mixed up in a blender. I use a magic bullet or my immersion blender. As long as it's softened cream cheese, it works just fine. If it isn't, then I use my Vitamix. And actually, I make big batches now. I do at least 8 eggs, 8 tablespoons of butter, and 4 ounces of cream cheese, and just make up 4 batches, 4 servings essentially of truffles. And I do that twice a week, and I usually have truffles at least once a day, sometimes more, depending on what other choices I'm making. Okay. The other thing I've been doing since about the second week in June is I've been drinking keto chow. This is a meal replacement. It has all the protein you'd need for one meal. You add the fats to the level you want. I've been, for the most part, using 4 tablespoons of butter per shake. Let me have a drink. That's the blueberry pie. And honestly, it tastes like blueberry pancakes, okay? That was what sold me on the chaffles. Was I put just a sprinkling of cinnamon on top of the cooked chaffle and just a little bit of a coffee syrup. I think it was butterscotch caramel from Da Vinci. Just a teeny little bit on it, and it was like having French toast. It was so good, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I need chaffles in my life. And then I made savory ones with everything bagel, or everything but the bagel seasoning. Um, and then I also made some with cochita, I think is what it's called. It's that ground Mexican cheese. So I put that on the bottom plate, put my batter in, and then cooked it for 4 minutes. And I think on one of those or a couple of those, I did the everything but bagel seasoning. Now I just make them without anything else, just the truffles. And that's what I've been eating. I've been air frying my own wings, and instead of, so like I was going out with my friend weekly usually, and we would get wings usually, and I was getting full sugar barbecue sauce wings, knowing that was probably not the best thing to do. Um, well, I no longer do that, so I'm getting either just salted or salt and vinegar sometimes, depending on where we go for wings. But at home, I'm doing either salt and vinegar or a barbecue rub. Right now, the barbecue rub that I have, I'm going to use it because I've had it and don't want to waste it, is got some sugar in it. But I'm only using about a teaspoon for, about 10-ish wings, of that. So I'm like, okay, I can do that. And the sugar component is at worst half of it, and it's so. And then I'll be making my own from here on out that doesn't use actual sugar, but using, like sort of brown sugar, stuff like that. Okay. And I've tested my blood sugars with it. That was the big key. Does this cause a spike in my blood sugars? And it doesn't. So I feel very comfortable using it until it's gone. If it was spiking my blood sugars 30 or more points, then I would have had to say, nope, I'm going to pass that on to somebody else who can use it and make my own and test it. Okay. So that's the other change that I made about the second week in June. I got a ketone meter. I've been putting that off forever and ever. And when I first started getting my readings, the first one was 0.2. The second one was 0.3. The third one, it was so low it didn't even register. It just says, no, you really don't have any. Sorry. Okay. Not a fun thing to get from your ketone meter. And then I got a blood glucose meter. And these are fairly inexpensive. But I did, I've been fighting doing the ketone meter. But I knew it was probably something I was going to need to do to actually break through this stall that I've been on for 5+ years. Okay. So this is the entire month of June's record. Food I ate, what my blood sugar was at the beginning, what my ketones were right before the first meal of the day, and what my weight was, and then when I was testing specific foods, I did bracketing. So I did fasting, blood glucose, 1/2 hour, 1 hour, 1.5 hour, 2 hour, and 4 hour. Not all of them, certainly, but so at first I was just doing 1 hour and 2 hour and 4 hour. But I changed to 1/2 hour, 1 hour, and 1.5 hour. And if I was already significantly down at the 1.5 hour mark, I didn't feel the need to do 2 hours. But that way I was getting a much better idea of how fast I was spiking and the upper limits of where I spiked to, and then how fast it was dropping down. That's going to help me determine if that's a safe food for me. And that's what I did with the barbecue seasonings. I did that. Let me pull that up on here. I did that test, and that was... Where is it? Nope. That was the jerky. Here we are. So on that day, I started out at a point 0.8 ketones and 88 for my blood glucose fasting. And I was not yet doing the um, the half hours by that point. Let me get back to where I was. Where'd I go? There we are. So 1 hour after, I was at 89 from an 88. So I went up 1 point. And then at the 2 hour mark, it was 88. And at the 4 hour mark, it was still 88. So I went up 1 point, I went down 1 point. So it's having no impact on my blood glucose to have that small amount of that barbecue rub. There were some other things that I'm putting in the potentially danger zone. One of them is the peanut butter keto shake. So I took that one. My starting glucose was, looks like 86 in this case. No, it's 88 again. And then I was actually testing the wings again, I think. And so before I even drank the keto shake, I had eaten something and it went down to 81, right? So it was a half hour after eating something else. It was down to 81. And then 1/2 an hour after drinking the keto peanut butter shake, it went to 108. Now, technically, that's still not considered a huge bump. But for me, it was like, oh my gosh, because that was from 88, it's like 20 points. But it is on the high end of getting towards being a full-on spike. So I'm going to retest with the chocolate peanut butter because I have a lot of that. So I want to see how that impacts me versus the peanut butter. And I'm just not going to personally purchase any of the peanut butters or chocolate peanut butters. If they happen to come in my surprise kit, I will consume them unless I'm showing on a regular that I'm spiking heavily with it, and then I will pass them on to other people at that point. And then I needed to test my there's this Tillamook sugar-free or zero sugar teriyaki jerky, which I do when I'm like doing a vending event and I need something that's not going to spoil, that I can consume and keep up my energy and ability to do things. So I did test that, and on that day my blood glucose fasting was 87, and at the 1 hour mark it was 92, so I went up 5 points. And then at the 2 hour mark it was 93, so it went up 1 more point at that, so making it 6 points. And then by the 4 hour mark it was down to 87, which is where I started, so totally fine. Then I needed to test cashews. They have been another one of those things that if I need to do a vending event, and I did this month, I had 2 vending events, and then next weekend I'm going to a Comic-Con, which is going to be an all-day thing where there's probably not going to be a lot of keto-friendly options that are affordable at this conference. So just having some jerky or some nuts that don't spike my blood sugar, and of course I'll start my day with a keto chow shake or maybe a steak before we leave. So the cashews, I started out at 88, and half hour after consuming or starting to consume the cashews, I was at 95. At the 1 hour mark, I was at 102. At the 1.5 hour mark, I was at 104. So again, it's not quite a 20 point spike. And then at the 2 hour mark, it was already down to 95, which is where I was at a half an hour after. So I felt comfortable not retesting at 4 hours. If I do test cashews again, I'm going to do the whole panel. And then today I tested macadamia nuts. So I ate just over 2 ounces of macadamia nuts, and I did weigh it. I started out at 87. At the half hour mark, I was at 96, and at the 1 hour mark, I was at 98, and at the 1.5 hour mark, I was at 90. So I felt comfortable not testing again after that. It is a bit of a rise, but I think the macadamia nuts are a reasonable thing on, the rare occasion that I'm going to do that, which is going to be more rare, and I will have to stay within, of course, those measurements to make sure I'm not overdoing it. So those are the major changes that I've made starting in June. And the first two, week and a half to 2 weeks, I wasn't being particular. I was tracking all of my foods, so I knew, like, sometimes I was around 1,600 calories, sometimes I was like 2,500 calories in a single day. And, I made sure that my total carbs, were 20 or less most of the time. The day of the cashews, they were probably a touch over, just because the cashews are really high in carbs. And let's see. So that first almost 2 weeks, I was doing an egg coffee. So I drink 1 cup of coffee a day, 12 ounces. And I was putting a single egg and a tablespoon of butter in it, zhuzhing it up. I was also adding collagen and stuff like that. And I was tracking it, but in my brain, I don't know, I guess it didn't, it did satisfy me. It operated like a breakfast, but now I'm down to 2 meals a day instead of 3, and I'm not doing the egg coffee anymore. And I'm plenty full most of the time. In fact, this is about, I don't know, 4 hours after my first meal of the day. And I'm enjoying this, but I'm not like, oh my God, I need to eat it, okay? Yummy. Okay, let's get back to my little research project on myself. So I stopped the eggs in the coffee, and now I'm not even putting butter in my coffee anymore. That's what I've been doing all along, is a tablespoon of butter and collagen. And I started adding the egg in probably mid-May or something, and I just kept doing it. So that first couple of weeks, I wasn't making any changes. I was just tracking. And about a week in, I started doing the ketones, and around that 2-week mark, I started doing the ketones and the blood glucose. So I have quite a bit of data on that. On June 1st, I was 171 and a half pounds. And I was in that range down to 170 for the first 5 days of the month. And then I was like, I thought it was a fluke, but on June 6th, I dropped down to 169 and a half. For the first time on my scale with my eyes, I saw under 170 on my scale. Very next day, I was back up to 171. At some point during all of this, I hit 172, and that actually was on the 13th of June. And again, I'd been 170 and a half was the lowest I'd gotten since that 169 and a half. But mostly it was averaging at 171. And I hit 172 on the 13th, back down a half a pound for 3 days, and another half a pound for 2 days. And then on the 19th, I'm like, on the 20th, I hit 170, back up to 171. Then on the 22nd, so the last time I was under 170 was June 6th. On June 22nd, I was 169. And then I dip down to 168 and a half, then back up to 169 and a half for 3 days running, and then 169. And then the 2 days after that, the 28th and the 29th, I was 168 consistently. And then this morning, 167 and a half. So that means over the last, the whole month, I've been averaging the 171, okay? But the last week, I have dropped down 4.5 pounds, which technically is over the last 2 weeks, because that 172 was on the 13th. So the last 2 weeks approximately, I've dropped 4.5 pounds. So it hasn't been like a big whoosh where you lose 3 to 5 pounds and, from one day to the next, and it stays off or bumps up just a teeny bit and then starts going down again. It has trended down most every single day. So again, on the 22nd, it was 169. Then for 3 days running, then the next day was 168 and a half. Then 3 days running, it bumped back up to 169 and a half. And then every day since then, went down to 169, then 2 days of 168, and then 167.5. So for me, I'm calling this, I have finally broken my 5+ year stall. And it's just, making some small changes because my body has already released the easy stuff, right? It did that in the first 6 months I went keto. And then it was mostly a matter of I was primarily maintaining. I did go back up a couple times for sure, possibly more, but I always dip back down. People kept saying, "Oh my God, you're losing weight." And I'm like, "Oh, the scale doesn't say it." And so for people who have issues with the scale, which I have in the past, I don't really recommend doing what I'm doing, which is weighing every single day. But I have worked through my issues with the scale and can easily just, instead of focusing on the number that morning, I'm looking at it over time, and I'm seeing how that changes with where my blood sugars are at, where my ketones are at, and the types of foods I'm eating. And it's been fairly consistently similar to the same things that I've been eating the whole month. I've just reduced it down. It's now but usually between 1,600 and 1,800 calories a day. So it has gone down from that 16 to even 2,500 per day in the beginning of the month. So that is definitely part of the change for sure. I'm also generally doing 2 salty electrolyte drinks packets per day. So that's been helping me keep my electrolytes up. My leg cramps have very much reduced over what they were. They were already way better than when I was first keto, but I was still having problems with muscle cramps and things like that. I do still occasionally have a cramp, but it releases much faster and is not as intense. So I'm counting that as a win too. When I look at that video I did back in 2018, even though I'm around the same weight, to me, and please tell me what you think, but to me, I look significantly thinner in my face and my upper body, and it's not like I'm doing anything to hide what my body looks like on these videos, but I'm just like looking at, when I looked at the other one, I still had a lot more inflammation going on in my tissues, and I can see the difference. So that too is a great thing. Actually, today I'm fairly inflamed because we've had some weather stuff going on, so my arthritis is a little kicked up, and so I definitely am a bit more swollen than normal. And yet I hit my lowest weight today too. And I mean, I knew at that point that it was too much inflammation to even wear the ring I normally wear on my thumb. So that's what's been going on. I'm really happy with the tracking I've been doing and testing different foods. I'm trying not to test like something every day because I don't like sticking my fingers 4+ times a day just to do it every single day. And of course the supplies are not cheap. And I want to see if something did spike me, how that impacted the rest of the time, and so I don't want that to also be impacted by other things I'm testing that could be causing whatever it is I'm seeing, if that makes sense. Like so far, besides the blood sugar spikes, I haven't noticed any major differences with like swelling and other things, So, while I may be able to choose something with peanut butter in it every now and again, it's going to be severely limited. Just like even though the Tillamook jerky didn't spike me heavily, I'm not going to incorporate it into a normal part of my daily eating. It's a treat or something I do when I don't have easy access to reheating anything or cooking anything or keeping anything refrigerated, because the vast majority of what I eat needs to be cooked and or heated and or refrigerated. And so like if I'm traveling or if I'm doing an all day, all weekend vending event, I have to make some choices that wouldn't be the ones I would necessarily make if I were hanging out at home. And I might as well make it even more enjoyable as long as it's also fulfilling me. And so that's what I'll use jerky and some of these nuts for, not everyday stuff, which I certainly was allowing myself prior. So I've also, like, in the last 6 months or so, reduced my vegetable intake, and my fruit intake is practically non-existent now. Even though it was just berries, it was still too many berries. But I haven't done, I might have a berry or two if it's like something, where I'm at a breakfast and that's like the only thing I can eat. I might have a little bit of berries then, but I don't go buy berries for myself anymore at all. Um, and then I've, in the last 6 months or so, really been not having hardly anything for actual vegetables for carbs. Um, just hoping that making those changes was going to be enough, and it wasn't. It wasn't moving the scale. It wasn't moving my comfort in my clothes, which meant that I really wasn't losing any inches either. Um, but I was maintaining my new status quo and keeping the health benefits that I have gained. And now I'm much more motivated to go the next step. Okay, so that's one thing that this has taught me, is that I did fantastic right out of the gate with keto. And then everything just came to a halt, a screeching halt, really. And my health stuff continued to improve. The inflammation was reducing, the pain was reducing, I was able to do more physically, um, didn't need the blood pressure medication, reverse type 2 diabetes. All of those incredible things have happened, and I've been able to maintain them. Um, but I know that there's more. I know that I can get my blood pressure even more down, because even though I don't need medications anymore, it still runs a little bit high. And I would like to have it just be normal. I think that would be great. I would like to have even less pain, like when we have these weather issues. I'm pretty sure if I can get a lot more of this inflammation and the foods that are causing the inflammation out of my body, then I will have a lot less pain, which will in turn make me more eligible or more able to be active, which I've been doing Pilates usually once a week, sometimes twice a week. Lately we've been going to the gym and hitting the treadmill for 20-30 minutes, and trying to start lifting weights again. Nothing major. I'm not going to become the next big bodybuilder or anything like that, but I want a shoulder bump again. I want to have that muscle to help me do the things that I need to do, but also that's going to help me burn more of the fat that's still left on my body that needs to go. I mean, it is not helping me, so I would like to be in a much healthier state, and that's why I'm focused on this. And just let me know what you think, what questions you have. We're going to be doing Chaffle class at the end of July, so if that's something you're interested in and you're in the Pueblo area, on the 28th of July, I'm going to be teaching chaffles starting at 10:30 in the morning. We're going to make them sweet, we're going to make them savory, and you can even try them just as they are with nothing to make them sweet or savory, just chaffles. Okay, well, have a great day. This has been Michelle with Keto Life in Harmony, and I will see you next time.